All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Off the Clock. We have punched the clock. We are off the clock. And today we have a very, very special guest. He is the host of the award-winning talk show Going Places with Ricc Rollins. He's been a professional tailor and stylist for over 20 years. He is a pastor, an author, and a modern-day Renaissance man. Ladies and gentlemen, Ricc Rollins.
Hey, folks. How are you?
All right, so I heard you've been pretty busy with Fashion Week.
Yeah, we just finished. Last week, I assisted at Tampa Bay Fashion Week with a wonderful designer by the name of Elizabeth Carson Racker. And this past week, it was Ricardo's was center stage for the Tampa Bay Fashion Experience, led by Tanika Bowles, the First Lady of Sports here in the area.
Yeah.
Go Bucks, go Bucks, go Bucks, go Bucks, go Bucks. Congratulations, Coach, on another win yesterday.
We stomped the Eagles. I was at that game.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did. And Coach is a client of mine as well.
Really?
And so we're working with him this season. And Tanika and I do a lot of work for her Tampa Bay Fashion Experience, which is such a philanthropic event that, it's over the course of 3 nights, of course. Helene raised her skirt on us on Thursday night, so we had to move that event, which is our Rumble in the Jungle event that will happen October 18th, I believe that's the date, and it is where designers that one of the sets of Gabby and Patty, I love them to death. I've coached them. I've been their Tim Gunn and Christian Siriano all rolled into one for the past 3 months, and they'll go up against 4 other designers, and then it's a modeling competition as well. And so that will happen. But on Friday night, we did their event at Avila, and Ricardo's was center stage. We were the only male designer. And
wow.
I think one of the greatest compliments for me was Ty Hunter, who is an accomplished stylist, walked up and said, "Your stuff was banging." And I was like, "Really? You think so?" He said, "Just say thank you."
That's a great compliment.
Because it's like, he's like, don't even think. Of course, you worked, and the vision was, and it's on my Instagram. So if you want to go see this piece that I did, it's a great promo for the store. And so we did that. And, other people walked up. A guy that I have been courting for 5 years said, "Okay, I yield. It's time for me to let you do me. I'm tired of being imitated, And so we're going to work with him. So it's been a blessing. I mean, in this process, it's a lot of work. And then we worked with Macy's on Saturday night, helping curate the looks for one of their new lines that they're carrying. And so this was a great weekend. It is wonderful to be acknowledged when you've been ignored by so many others, because I do styling. I design. My designs hopefully will be out next fall, my own personal designs. But in the meantime, I've curated look after look after look, and we've owned the store for in its second or third iteration. And people that's just a men's store, but it's not just a men's store. We've always been more than just a men's store. We've designed and curated for, for DeAndre Breckenseck, who was on seasons 10 and 11 of American Idol.
Yep. Oh, wow.
When he was in Europe and Australia, and we did that for him. We've worked with other people. In fact, number 7 on your team here, Michael Brown Stevens. I'm sorry.
That's what it is, yeah.
I'm sorry, Michael. I promise. I'm sorry. When in the first 2 games of last season, we dressed him, and then they made him. Then everybody had to go back to doing sports gear, which I still say, Coach. The whole team. I can dress the whole team. We can put them in green suits. We can put them in tan, as close to gold suits, and give them some individuality with ties. We can do that. I'm just putting it out there.
I think it was great.
And that way everybody has an opportunity to look well. But Michael killed it. If you go to his Instagram, I think it's still up. It was green. The ones we did a 3-piece suit in green that had gold buttons, and he really. He killed it.
He's living the Bulls life.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, so.
Nice.
And so that, like I said, Fashion Week was busy, and we stay busy. So if you're not busy, then what are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah. When I called you last week to talk about coming on the podcast, you sounded stressed out of your mind.
I was because we were trying to get ready for Fashion Week last week.
Crunch time.
We did a table, and that table had to look a certain way because even if they didn't buy, you wanted them to stop.
Yeah.
And you wanted them to at least you wanted to make sure that they would have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not just about making the point of sale. It's about the awareness
it's
about
establishing relationships.
Absolutely.
Or even making, like you said, awareness is key, because if they don't know you're there, they don't know you're there. So,
of course.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah, so I really wanted to ask, for somebody like me who doesn't really know too much about fashion, especially
Really?
You know what? Okay. I asked Alex before, I was like, I wonder if he'll rate my outfit today if I ask him.
Okay, so let me see. Okay. You know what? I think you have your own individual style. It is relaxed. It is what you feel most comfortable in.
That's true.
The biggest mistake people make in fashion is trying to look like someone else in clothing that is not even mindful to their body. From the standpoint, you in a slim fit suit, I wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't do that either.
I would relax the look, but also make sure that it's perfect for the occasion.
Yeah.
Because see, oftentimes we don't read the room. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we got to read the invitation before we read the room. But the bottom line is that I wouldn't put you in in something so staunch that the whole night you're pulling at it and you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because your body is just like my body type isn't. Well, it's getting there. It's getting there. Well, try having 4 heart attacks. You better get it right. But I would just really. A real stylist hears the customer,
of course,
or the client, and builds that relationship so that I can pull for you and just ship it to you, and you're not going to even.
I'm not questioning.
You're not going to question it. You say, if that's what Rick says, do. That's what Rick says, do. We have a motto at both at Style Lab and at Ricardo's. We'll never tell you what to wear. We'll just show you how to wear it well.
Ooh.
And so my whole thing is not to. It is to guide you, but not force you.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. So, I mean, your look today, you're comfortable. This is your look.
It is.
And so
green's my color.
And it works well for you, even in the dark. And so I think that's one of the things that most people, as I said, the biggest mistake is to try to emulate someone else's style, which then says you have none of your own.
Mm.
All right. Now, how would you dress Alex?
How would I dress Alex?
He's better for a slim fit.
Okay, let me show off to the camera a little more. I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt and jeans.
But that's also his look.
It is.
But I've seen him dress up too. So I know he's capable of doing it, and he's comfortable. I mean, most people don't dress the same way well, I do. From the standpoint, I have uniforms.
Yeah.
And because somebody said, I'd love to see your closet. I was like, no, you wouldn't. But I'm reorganizing it. I want in my next home, or even the home I'm living in now, I want one of the rooms to be my closet. Because the clothing is there.
Yeah, no.
But I also did television for consistently. I cringed because sometimes I saw myself in the same outfit again.
Yeah.
Because because I wasn't paying attention to wardrobe, because I was also the executive producer of the show. And one of the things that I learned in that process was that I needed to pay attention to the whole picture and not just aspects of it. But with you, going back to Alex, what I would do is, find out the occasion, and then dress him accordingly. This, again, is if this is what he's comfortable in, then this is what he needs to be in today, because there's nothing worse than being buttoned up on your own show and uncomfortable.
It leads to bad performance as well.
It really does, because you're thinking the whole time, how do I look on camera?
Yep.
I can't wait for this to be over because I've had to suck in because the jacket didn't fit. I've been there.
I've been there too.
And it's like, I was one day I was like, oh no, we can't shoot from that angle because I was 25 pounds heavier. And I'm like, that looks like I'm going to slaughter tomorrow. So we could, and you have to be cognizant of colors too. Everybody cognizant of colors. You can't wear the same. Everybody can't wear the same color. I experiment with colors to see what the response is. I do focus groups without people realizing that they're part of the focus group because I want to see what they say. I want to see if this is a color that works on me, but is it a color that will also work on someone that has the same hue of skin that that is melanin, either melanin infused or melanin challenged? Because if I'm using the color blush doesn't look good on everyone. Whether you're dark or light, it has to be that wonderful composite that works. And oftentimes that's why I say you can't just because it looks good. I get people that bring, well, I want to look just like this. No, you don't, because that's not your look. And it really, to truth be told, it wasn't their look either. And so it's one of those things where I just think that dressing is it's very personal. It's almost spiritual to a point.
Okay, yeah.
Because if you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you are good.
Yeah.
And so my job is to make sure that every client feels good, looks good, so they can be great. And so I'm never going to, and I'll have a vision for you. Understand that a real stylist, they almost become intuitives because I'll have when you walk in, I'll say, okay, I know what I have or what we're looking for. But there's some people that it's almost like there's a block. Yeah. Because they are so hell-bent on doing it their way. And then you don't need me.
Yeah. How does that work out when you are a stylist and you have like some clear vision for a client, but the client, like you said, is just very hell-bent on, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. And at the same time, you're also in a position as like a business owner where it may be the best choice for you to give the client what they want, even if you don't think it matches your vision or what they would need.
But you know what? And when you said that, it's still my reputation on the line. So in a lot of instances, it is having hard conversations with hard-headed people. Okay. And saying to them, look, I know that you think you look good this way. Let's try. Before you even go anywhere in the studio, let's try it my way. Let's see what happens here. I was thinking about when you said it, I flashed back to my godmother. I'm also an interior designer. And my godmother used to say, baby, now understand that Vera Thomas was 6'2", about 350 pounds, but could design her. I mean, construction when it came to curtains and valances and cornice, hands down one of the best. Most of the homes on Bayshore, I bet you some of that stuff is still up because they were works of art. But Vera said, baby, it's not your house. So it's not it's not my body. But what I am going to say to you is that I think that sometimes we want to move beyond predictable. Yeah. Because predictable becomes comfortable, which also becomes complacency. Okay. And so the possibility, so when you walk into a room, people say, they see you, but they don't see you. Does that make sense? They see you, but they've seen you in that navy blue suit before. Oh. So why now? What's gonna get you noticed? Yeah. Even in the eyes of those who have seen you before. Now, how do you get them to see you again? Okay, so we won't do navy. Let's do indigo, or let's do a modified royal blue that's not so bright, but it still has this charm to it. It's almost princely, because when I think about it, Prince Charles wears this one specific blue all the time, but so does Raphael Warnock. He wore it at the DNC, and I had 2 clients come in and say, I want that color. And one of them was getting ready to give the TED Talk of his life, and so it was imperative that we do it. And it worked. I knew what he was looking for. And when we delivered it, he was extremely happy with it. So it's really about having a relationship, and any real relationship is built on what? Trust. Trust and communication. And so therefore, if you trusted me to come to me, now hear me when I say to you, I think we need to pivot just enough beyond your comfort zone.
All right.
And that's a good branch into a different thing I wanted to bring up. So you got your start in the entertainment industry in 1987 running your own show, The Ricc Rollins
The Ricc Rollins show, then spelt with only one C. Because I thought people would call me Rico. The lady at the Panera called me Rico. I said Rick. She said Rico. I was like, no, it's Rick. But so at the time it was only one C because I thought they would call me Rice, Ricky. Some people, I don't know how you get Ricky out of RICC, but they do. But in 1987, I walked into my to a local public origination or a public access station, actually. Said I wanted my own talk show. They gave it to me. By the end of the show, they offered me something that they'd never offered before, and that was a year-long contract because they didn't want to lose the show. I went in knowing that there was something greater than that. So I treated it with the respect. Here's the thing for me. If you treat the things that you are gifted to do with respect, then that respect is honorable. To him, much is given, much is required. Respect is a part of that requirement. I can't just do it any kind of way and think, at least I did it. No, I've got to do it with the mindset and the vision that there is greater. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
And so that's how we started, and they took it seriously. Would not let them put a set behind me because I didn't want to look like everybody else. We aimed lights. It kind of reminded you of the old Donahue set before he moved on, and then we finally found a entrepreneur that believed in us, built us a set. And so the show took on, it was about brand. Before we were talking about branding, we were branding even back in the 80s.
Yep.
And so but I knew that I wanted more because there were people there that accepted the mundane as their miracle. And I will never accept, because just if you're doing it and everybody else is doing it, then why are you doing it? My whole thing was to do more than, and to be better than, not better than anyone. As I said that to Emma, my whole thing is never to be the best at what I do, but to be better than the best, my best. People say, well, your competition. I don't have competition.
No one is me.
I have colleagues. Right? Because I've been called according to purpose. So whatever my purpose is, nobody else gets to touch that. It is my purpose. I've been given this voice, for a reason. People are like, oh my God, you have a voice for, I said,
it's a great voice.
When they say you have a voice for radio, I was like, well, but the face is supposed to be on TV. But for me, I just know that whatever God has given me, that I'm supposed to use it not only for his glory, but for my goodness and my greatness. And that's what my life has been like. I mean, I was on this campus, and it should be somewhere on the records in somebody's archive. I was here in first grade. Taking college classes.
Whoa.
for an organization that developed a program for Black and brown children. Well, we were colored back then, but developed it for people who tested with high aptitudes, and did it first through 8th grade. My father in 9th grade questioned, well, is he ever going to get a degree? And they were like, oh, it's not a degree program. My father said some things that I won't repeat because that was my daddy. Love that man, miss him dearly. But his whole thing was that, okay, you've played with him long enough, because that's really, it was an experiment, and it was a great time. But then it came to a detriment, if you will. When I got to college, I was bored with college. Because it didn't dawn on me until years later why everybody was excited to be there. And of course, I mean, being at Morehouse, go Tigers, you can always tell a Morehouse man, you just can't tell him much. But from the time that I knew who Martin Luther King was, and I read his bio, and it said Morehouse College, I never wanted to go anywhere else.
Yep.
And I got there and realized that I didn't even want to be there. because I'd already experienced that. You know, never really studied, had a 3.825, you know, got sick for a lot of different reasons, came home, and the entrepreneur in me was resurrected because I was an entrepreneur at 5 or 6 because I think I told the story. I was making doll dresses out of the scraps because my mother was a seamstress and later a tailor, and so I would take her fabrics and make doll dresses. Couldn't sew a bit, but would hand stitch them or staple them or glue them for the little girl across the street and sell them for $1. And then because you could easily tear them apart, would do the upcycle. See, I was ahead of my time.
Yeah.
For 50 cents.
There you go.
There you go.
So it was that kind of thing. But when I walked into that television station, again, it came back to the point that I believe there's a scripture that says I can do all things. I'm just dumb enough to believe that it meant all things. But I have a philosophy. Anything I don't do well, I don't do.
Yeah.
Because so you can get better at it. No, because if I can't pick it up the first time, and there's not a rhythm, that's not for me. I'm not supposed to. I can do all things, but it never said that I'm supposed to do everything.
Yeah.
Important distinction there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You just have to know where your passion is. And I would say that to any student. If you're in med school because your daddy was a doctor, but you don't want to be a doctor and you want to be a ballet dancer, please get out the program because I don't want you operating on
Check doctors.
Exactly. It's not a passion. I believe that people should follow their passion. And some people say passion doesn't pay the bills. It can. And you have come along in a wonderful time and age because you can, and it's at your fingertips. The things that we can do with these are amazing. I came along before this. There was no cell phone. When I was in news, in news and television, we were still on word processors and the first iterations of computers. Now it is like, what would we do without ChatGPT? I'm just being honest, or any of the other apps that we use to be creative. So we've come such a long way, and there's some people who are kicking and screaming, myself included. When we went into the pandemic and everybody was doing Zoom, I was like, I don't want to do no Zoom. I'm used to having the person next to me. Baby, when we started getting celebrities because they were bored at home too, I was like, Zoom is for me. We were still doing Zoom after people went back in the studio. But we eventually said it's time to go back in. And you'll know it. And I bring up that point because there will be a time when you know that it's time to pivot or it's time to proceed.
Trust your instincts.
Yes, you have to. But you have to have good instincts.
Of course.
And you have to listen. My mama used to say, baby, trust your gut. And I tell my congregation, listen for the whispers. The whisper saved me in the pandemic because I could have lost it all in the pandemic. There was a voice that just kept saying, be still. And I was ready to make this move, and it said, be still, twice. The second time, I was like, okay, I resigned myself to being still. Got a phone call. Macy's was closing at the mall. Then the mall was closing. Now imagine if I had proceeded, brought all of that inventory in, and it had to sit for 2 or 3 months. See, I would have been the one that would have been, here's your mask, boo. Come on, we coming in and shopping, but nobody was buying. But it just created an opportunity. You have to seize the opportunity no matter the season of your life. You have to seize the opportunity. But there's a part of me that says that we can't be anxious in the process. Because sometimes when you're anxious and you're overly anxious, you end up in places with people who don't get it, and that's a hard place to be. Okay.
Yeah.
Did I think I answered your question?
Yeah, you actually got into a couple other questions I was going to ask. One of the things I wanted to ask was, I know a lot of our listeners, me included, have felt like I'm in marketing because I wanted to make it more in a creative field, but I felt like there was a lot of insecurity there in terms of jobs aren't necessarily the most secure. You have to do a lot of hard work for potentially not a lot of gain. But you kind of answered the question already.
Okay. But to him, much is given, much is required. Hard work is, if it comes too easy, then how long will it last?
Yeah. Is there really any point?
Yeah, is there really point when it comes that easy to you, and you don't respect it? You have a car?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I drove him here today.
Okay, but you have a car.
Yes.
Did you buy that car or did somebody give you that car?
My dad gave me that car.
Okay. So, and I think you'll understand that. There's no investment in that car. You're grateful for it, but there's no investment. So you may not respect him, but you may see the car as, okay, it was a gift. And so my point is that people don't treat that which is given to them with the same amount of respect often that they do when you had to work for it.
Yeah.
My dad gave me my first car and then gave me he said, here's your car. I was like, oh, great, Dad. And he said, here's the payment book. I said, so how did you give it? He said, I went and got it for you. I did all the hard work. Now pay for it. And I respected that car. I treated that car like,
because you saw it go out of your paycheck every week.
Well, no. What he did was he would say, no, I don't. Pay me. I'm the bank. He had paid. He bought and paid cash for the car, but asked them but they had already created the payment book.
Yeah.
He said, give it to me anyway. and I had to pay for it.
Hopefully low interest loans.
I was I was thinking I was paying for the car. He was putting that money in a savings account for me. You know, when I got married, I had $20,000 at my disposal. Now, of course, I tried to, first he said, but only half can be used for the wedding. Smart man.
Yeah.
Because when the wedding was over, I was still paying for the wedding, and we weren't married anymore.
Yeah, I just went to a wedding 2 weekends ago, and the money that I've heard coming out of like my cousin's accounts, my aunt's accounts, my grandma's account, it's insane.
I feel like for our generation, a lot of people are downsizing their weddings.
They
Yes.
should.
Yeah.
Let me
It's
say,
really not
you
that
should.
big.
It is not. Let me tell you something. And I would say this, and I've gotten in trouble with some of the brides that come in my shop. And I've said to you, I said, so what's your name? She said, my name is Nicole. Nicole. I said, okay, Nicole, what your friends call you? She said, Nikki. I said, Nikki, can I call you Nikki? I said, now you may tell me to go back to call you Nicole when it's over with, but Nicole, do you really need a $5,000 wedding dress? Do you really need 12 bridesmaids? Do you love him or the idea of getting married?
Yeah.
My whole thing is, you can go to the courthouse, have a simple ceremony, meet folks for dinner.
That's my plan.
And have them bring you gift cards or deposit into, whether it's Cash App, Venmo. Give me something that I can build my future with whomever your significant is. I've seen people just become crazy. I didn't recognize them in this process. And so I think we put too much emphasis on the day and not the
And the
lifetime.
event.
And the event. Yeah, and the event. So, I just think that when it comes to weddings, I love a beautiful wedding. I'm a sucker for a well-executed event.
It's very pretty, a lot of crying.
Exactly, but at the same time, what are you going to do after the day? Where y'all going to live? Where you going to live?
You only have the venue for the day.
Exactly.
That's not a house. You
and
can't build a home
some
out of that.
people are renting those tuxedos, so they go back. No shade to the rental people, but you can come and buy something from me, and it's yours. We have packages. Just know that we have packages.
Yeah.
I
I feel like a lot of people especially our generation, are trying to live like moment to moment. They want to have these big moments that they can post on social media, and then they don't think about like the long-term ramifications. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of like the buy now, pay later stuff, then just
it's huge. Klarna Afterpay.
Look.
Hey. You're getting paid.
But for me, I am a Klarna and Afterpay junkie.
Really?
But only because I use it for my business.
Mm-hmm.
So if I need something right now, or we want to try something out, my risk is not as great.
Yeah.
Because my investment was 1/4 of what it was. Now, there have been times I wanted a Movado, so I did that, and guess what? The Movado's still in the box. I put it on once or twice. The watch I have on today I like much better. I have a Cartier that one of my clients gave me because they couldn't pay me. So
you accept payment in watches? Is that on the record?
No, that was that one time only. But it was really more of a gifting because they later came and paid me. But I don't get caught up. You would think that in an industry that is so brand driven, I don't get caught up. My daughter is 38 years old and is so you're wondering, yes, I had her when I was 1. No, but my daughter's 38 and is the queen of Target. And she will put things. Yesterday, people, I love your outfit. It was Target on sale. I just don't think that, and granted, I am a high-end or mid to high-end clothier. And if you can afford it, I'm here for you. But I also have clothing that is more cost effective. And then there's some people that say, that's still expensive, Ricc Rollins. This man told me, I'm not paying that kind of money in here. And I respected that. And I was like, okay, there's the door.
Yeah.
I said, well, thank you for your honesty. Translation, there's the door. Don't waste any more of my time, because that's one of the things I can't get that back. I'm 62. I just turned 62 not yesterday, but a week ago, Sunday.
Happy birthday.
Happy late birthday.
Okay, we accept all gifts, Cash App. I can give it to you, But for me, I just don't. I admire the beauty. There are things. I have a client that has this beautiful Louis Vuitton purse. Not that I want to carry purses, but I just think the purse it's so her. And she was like, I saved up for that purse. And I used to tell the women in my congregation, they come in with their little purses. I said, if you don't have the amount of money that purse costs in the purse, shame on you. I'm not impressed.
I'm sure she respects that purse too.
Yes,
because she had to work for that. She had to
work for it. But like you said, now it's in this place where you can do payments and buy, and all of that, and that's great. But at the same time, like you said, I think that this quest for instant gratification is dangerous in a way, because
absolutely
because
once you have to pay that
to work, or it gives you nothing to work towards because it's there,
even on a deeper level.
It's right here, But when you have to work for it and and it becomes a goal, there's something different about that. I just, when I go back to be anxious for nothing, I can't say that enough. In fact, it's a sermon series I'm getting ready to preach, because oftentimes when you end up in places and spaces where, you written checks, as my dad didn't say, well, I won't say it like he says it, but that my butt couldn't cash. I mean, I've been there, because I was trying to keep up with people. When I went away to Morehouse, Dr. Alian Lowry, the former pastor of the Beulah Institutional Baptist Church here, taught Dr. King at Morehouse. And he said to me, son, you are not rich. I was like, you don't know me. You don't know what I got.
You don't know what's in my bank account.
Exactly. Stop it. Get out of my pockets. But he was saying, he says, your father, my father worked very hard, and he was well paid for what he did. He was an acetylene supervisor, the only person of color to ever hold that position.
Wow.
And when he retired, they retired the titling and called it something else. But he said, your father, and my mother was a domestic. She was a domestic, but she was a seamstress that could sew under the ground. And we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to tell you the story of how I got into this business.
Yeah, I wanted to ask.
Yes.
But my mother was, we lived in I still live in that little 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 772 square foot home. Now it sits on 3 lots, but it's a very simple house. I live very simply. I've lived in bigger homes. But it doesn't. After a while, it doesn't matter, because it doesn't bring you any real. My Jag brought me joy. I loved my Jag. My Jag died.
Nice car.
Yeah, it is. And it wasn't a brand new one. It was a 2010 XF. But baby,
it's still a Jag.
That's a
when
beautiful
I pulled
car.
up in that car, there was just something about. I got out. I would always make sure the shoes were right, and I'd put the foot out first. Before
That's the first thing they see.
Yeah, that was the first thing. And I'd always park so that people could see me getting out of the Jag, because the Jag paved the way for what I was going to present.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not materialistic at all. I mean, I've had nice cars. I mean, it's a long way from that azure blue Corolla to, the Jag, the classic Jag. But, and a lot of repossessions. Be the first one to admit it. There was some repossessions along the way. Every entrepreneur story. But in the process, it was that car opened doors for people who didn't see this first, and this being skin tone. Because people, you fool yourself if you want to that they don't still see it.
Yeah.
That's a lie. Even in this race, that we ain't gonna get political, but even in this, the color commentary that has been out there, and I mean that in all sense, figuratively and literally. You sit there and you go, but this is 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still,
but
there's
it's
so
still
many
there.
people, yeah.
But I would get, but the presentation. But let me say this: presentation without substance is a major fail.
But you already had the vision. You just needed the platform.
Exactly. And so when I drove up to restaurants, good evening, sir. And I would purposely valet it, and the valet was like, "Oh my God, I get to drive this." I said, "Just make sure you bring it back at the end of the evening," and that kind of thing. So, and that was great. But at the same time, if there was no substance to me,
what's it all for?
What's the value,
there was a term that we were called when I was younger. It was you were perpetrating. It's just fraud.
Yeah.
At this point, because I just think they have to meet up. They don't meet up. It can be detrimental to
hold
everybody
yourself
involved.
accountable to the standard that you present.
There's an accountability, and oftentimes people don't want it. And especially in this age of instant gratification, what you were saying earlier about presenting on social media, how many of those people really can do that all the time?
I think that might be one of the things that our generation, I think, is getting better at or has down to a T. I think it's very easy to pinpoint somebody that does have that presentation but doesn't have that substance. It feels like you can nail it instantly.
It's really easy to detect phonies.
Yeah.
And I've had to say to my friend, a friend of mine, a dear friend, in fact, this is who I was talking to on the way in. I said, you can't believe everything you see, because he was getting depressed. He's like, how are these people in Dubai? And I said, do we know whose credit card they use?
Exactly.
Or
where that money's coming from.
Used when they got there, how they were used. My big thing is that, I get fussed at by a business associate for not going around to look at what the competition is doing. I'm too busy doing me and making sure that the experience here. Now, I'm not saying to you that I have it all together. There's always room for improvement. But I'm pretty confident in what I do.
Yeah, and if you're sitting in that anxiety of what you could be, then that's going to distract you from being what you are.
Exactly. Dr. Seuss says it best. Those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter. And so I don't have time to worry about people that don't get me. There was a time.
And everyone goes through it.
But at 62, no. I can't do. I can't.
Just doesn't make sense
because
to.
I don't have time for it. Look, once again, I alluded to this earlier. I have a heart condition, and stress can take me out today. I can't get stressed about these things. I can do what I can do, and when things don't happen the way they should, you move on to the next thing, or you get ready for the next day, and try to make it happen. So I just think that, like you said, what I'm really relieved to hear you say is that you're able to spot the perpetrators, because it will have you thinking, well, what have I done with my life? I see people younger than me driving Teslas, and I'm like, I don't know how. But then I learned that you can get a Tesla for $299 a month on a lease. I was like, oh, okay, baby, let me go get it. No, I don't want a Tesla, but at the same time, my business partner says all the time, it does not matter what car you drive. It's what drives you that matters.
Ooh.
And
that's powerful.
That's true.
It's not the plane, it's the pilot.
Exactly. It is. Because without the pilot, the plane goes nowhere. The things that you do in your business, if you're a business owner, anybody could do your business, but nobody can own your business And it is the thing that you really have to be. That's why I don't have competitors. You know, there's a company, they got billboards all over the city, and everybody's like, aren't you afraid they're going to take your business? You can't take what's ordained for me will never be taken away.
And you get to have so much more time because you're not stressing about, oh, well, what if?
Exactly. You know, that the owner of that company is a trust fund baby. Okay? Plain and simple. They want you to go play in traffic, so they gave you money. Yeah, I said it. I don't know that for sure, but I've been told. Okay. Yes.
Open secret. One of the last questions I wanted to have for you was, I saw on your LinkedIn that from 2000 to 2010, you worked with, or you were one of the co-founders of Central Florida Black Pride. Yes.
Okay. Up until 2010, I did it. I was in the hospital having my first heart attack. Designing flyers and building the website and doing all of those things for an organization that I believe in. As a same gender loving man of color, I believe that there are times when we are often left out of the greater picture, or we're objectified by folks. And I refuse to be your Mandingo fantasy. That ain't gonna happen. But the bottom line was that it was necessary because we didn't have that kind of representation. My mother spoke at Pride. My mother at the time, Mama had to be, in her 70s. And we did a panel for parents of color who were accepting of their children. Because that is not the story in our community in a lot of instances. And as a pastor who built an inclusive, long before it was popular, we were doing this inclusive ministry, welcoming in all people, and affirming ministry, so everybody was welcome. But there was a place that you'd never hear the Adam and Steve sermons and stuff like that. So, because I will say this, I don't make my same gender loving self the spotlight piece of me. I'm Jesse Ricardo Dimitri Reigns Rollins II all day long. My daddy's Puerto Rican, my biological father's Puerto Rican, my mother's Cuban, Native American. There's some black splattered in there. And so somebody's going to try to make me pick. And then there's the same gender loving side of me. Somebody's going to try to make me pick. I'm all those things, but at the end of the day, me is the name I call myself. Okay. So, but it was necessary. And my mother got up and spoke that day, and she spoke to people who did not have the same relationship we had. Because I could tell my mother anything.
And that's a rare thing.
And she loved me when I discovered that this is who I really was, even before, and then got married afterward. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother show. But a shout out to my former wife, loved me through it. But my mother got me therapy. And when she said, baby, do you need to talk to somebody? And I was like, she said, do you need some therapy? I thought, what kind of, what she wanted me to, she said, I just want you to be the best at who you are.
Yep.
And maybe you need to talk this through. And so Dr. Paul Mintz, God rest his soul, he was my Moses. Okay. He was my MLK.
Really?
You know, because I was able to then dream without fear and walk without fear. Now, I got married because of how I was raised. My Christian upbringing was that God don't like you because you are. Lies. But I got married because I knew that I was on a fast track to pastor, and I knew that I needed that foundation, and I wanted it.
Yeah.
I wanted it badly. There was no DL crap going on. None of that. But at the same time, I wasn't walking in my truth. And there are scriptures, and ye shall know your truth, and it shall set you free. So we got to that place. I think the greatest thing that could have come out of that, and my ex-wife agrees, is our daughter Jessica. That the greatest gift and my savior Is that, well, she ain't a little girl anymore. But
She's always your little girl.
But she's always going to be my
Yeah,
little girl.
yeah.
But she's I call her my one and only, but she's my greatest gift. But I had to even show her that it was okay for me to walk in my truth, because I was not going to be one of those fathers who lived double lives. Because of that shame, but you weren't going to be ashamed. I write about them in my books, but that's far from the truth. Anybody that says, well, I'm going to tell somebody that that's the worst kept secret in the country. When there have been articles written in other countries about me as a publisher, and as an author, because our books were bestsellers, I don't have to walk in that. That's one of the freedoms I don't have to. I mean, that the freedom of being true to myself allows me to do that, And I'm grateful that I had a mother who understood. I think had I shared it with my father before he died, I think he would have gotten there. But he was still my biggest champion.
Yeah,
I am more like my father. I tell people all the time, you don't want to meet Jesse. Because Jesse comes with company. My father carried a gun at all times. And we called it Pearl. He carried Pearl with him everywhere he went. He loved Jesus, but he would cuss your ass out. Yeah, I said it. And that is me. I'm going to do T-shirts, and they probably will sell out. But my whole thing was, I am grateful to the parents I had. Because I used to wonder why my mother gave me away. That was providential, because she couldn't have given me the life.
Yeah.
Because she was barely, when my mother was killed, she was 19 years old. Okay. My baby sister barely got to know her mother. She was raised by her grandmother. But I know I wouldn't have had the life I've had. I know that I wouldn't have done the things that I've done. I mean, I've had a charmed life. I went to Morehouse, but I didn't graduate. I matriculated, and I'm quick to say that in my bio. You never see that. I'm not going to lie about graduate. I didn't graduate.
You did general studies?
I did general, and came. Well, I got sick, and I came on home. And when I got home, my daddy said, I don't care what the doctor say. He said, your ass ain't sitting around this house all day long feeling sorry for yourself. Go get a job. And my first job was at was no longer there, but at University Square Mall. It was Robinson's that later became Maison Blanche, and then Dillard's. That was my first job. And that was where I realized my creative side. Well, I'd realized it and tapped into it, but now I was able to utilize it every day, and they were paying me for it.
You saw it as a viable career path.
I said, yeah, and that's how we did that. You asked me earlier, and I want to tell the story real quick, because I know we're running out of time, probably over. Cut out whatever you need.
It's okay. We can go long on guests.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, but I was probably 7 or 8, and my aunt worked at the Woolworth in West Shore Plaza.
Yeah.
There used to be a cafe, so she was the head cook. There were weekends when she couldn't come to church, and so we would go there and have Sunday dinner, because the secret was that while she was cooking their food, she was also cooking her food.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, I want that. She said, this ain't for you, baby. This is for my people. And so there was a store, and I would always look at that store because it had beautiful suits. And my dad was getting ready to be elevated in the church to trustee. And he needed a good black suit, and there was this black suit in the window that was impeccable. It had pick stitching, which it looks like somebody hand sewed around the lapel of the jacket, and it had just these details that fascinated me at 7 years old. And we walked in, and nobody paid attention to us, and so we left. Well, a couple of Sundays later, we went back, and it was getting closer, and I said, don't you want to go get your suit? And so we walked back in, and this man looked at us like that. It was my mother, myself, and I. And no, it wasn't a Sunday. We went back another day during the week, because my father was dressed in work clothes, and my mother was too. And I had on my little school uniform, go CKS Lions. And No, I was still at Christ the King at the time. At St. Peter Claver at the time. And he looks at us. And he looks like, what are y'all doing here? He's an older white gentleman. And my father said, I'd like that suit in the window. He said, are you sure you can afford that suit? My father says, we won't know that until you tell me how much it is. And he said, but just to answer your question, he pulled out his wallet, and the wallet was stacked. Now, backstory to that, he didn't know how much it was going to cost, but he went to the credit union where he could get a loan. He made sure that whatever they said it cost,
he could pay.
He could afford it. Because he was not going to, because we'd already been ignored in that store. The man looked at him and he said, well, do you know what size you are? My mother quickly chimed in because she knew his sizes, because
she was a seamstress.
She was a seamstress, and she'd been making, outfits and stuff for him. And so he goes and gets the suit, he tries it on, and he begins to pin it wrong. And my mother says, why are you doing that? And he looked at, ma'am, I know what I'm doing. She said, move. And she began to pin it and chalk it. She says, now you can take it to your tailor. But the look on their face before that happened, in that moment, I realized for the first time that there were some people that didn't approve of us being able to walk wherever we wanted to walk into, because there were no colored signs anymore, And I looked at my parents and I said, don't worry, one day I'll have my own store, and nobody will ever feel like this again. Now, that was 8-year-old me. It took 48 years for me to go back to that same mall and open Ricardo's. But it came from, and the moral to this is that you can either be defeated by what confronts you, or you can defeat what confronts you. My mother went from being a seamstress to being a tailor because she said, nobody will ever treat my husband or my son like that again.
So it was a moment for not just you, it was a moment for your mother, for your father.
Because my father was vindicated in that moment.
Absolutely,
You know, and, he counted, this memory just came back. He stood there and he counted that money out so slow. He wanted this man to remember that moment. Did we ever go back to that store again? No. Because we didn't need to, because now he had his own personal tailor, because my mother was, but the point was proven. But now anything that he needed, she made. And did the same for me until I told her I didn't like this one fabric. And she said, oh, you don't have to wear, oh, really? I done spent my money on this fabric, baby, and you don't want it? Okay, you don't have to. Mama's never going to make you anything else again. And she didn't. Okay. So that's why I had to learn how to really, and that was one of the reasons I went to work in retail too, is because I needed to be able to buy my own clothes and I'd done that. I said my first job, that wasn't my first job. My first job was actually when I was junior and senior in high school. I worked both at Mitchell's Formal Wear because I knew I needed my tux. And I also worked at Mr. Mann at the Eastlake Square Mall because you got a real good discount on clothes. And I won best dressed. I didn't want best dressed. This is the thing. I did not want best dressed. I wanted most likely to succeed.
Yeah. Best dressed was a given.
Yeah. And it was but I took it, and it's just so funny because it was still providential. We still manifested that, when I walk in the room, most times I am still best dressed, but now it's a part of the brand.
Yeah.
If people are shocked when they see me in basketball shorts and a T-shirt. Now, of course, the T-shirt says Ricardo's on it, but available for $19.95. No, I'm only kidding. But no, it's really $29.95. No, because I pray over it too. No, but you'll get that on the way home. But I just know that it has to, if I don't live my brand, then I can't be my brand. Makes sense?
Yeah.
And that's why if they know you as the cool podcasters, then be the cool podcasters. if I told you that day, there were other people raising their hand, and I came back to you because I knew that I connected with you because I watched you during the whole AMA presentation, and I was like, okay, that's somebody that I need to get to know.
At the general body meeting.
Yeah,
Alex is electric.
Yeah, he is.
Little bit,
he is. And, I didn't know what to expect out of you today, but you've surprised me because you're very insightful.
Thank you.
One of the things that you are a lesson in, don't let outward appearances. Don't judge that book by a cover.
Yeah.
Because you were insightful. You're very good at this.
Thank you.
Both
Wow.
of you are. You're very good at this.
Thank you.
I've been in college settings, and I was like, who put them at the mic and why? Did the real person not show up today? But I've enjoyed this. I'm sorry if I talk too much.
It's been like riveting.
Yes.
So
I'm having a wonderful time.
You're an amazing storyteller, and we really appreciate having you on the podcast. We have to start getting back on the clock. So thank you for coming. Is there anything that you would like to promote about yourself?
Yeah,
well,
please,
just remember
this
camera's right there.
Ricardo's is at 2502 North Howard Avenue in the NoHo district. In historic West Tampa. It is right at the corner of North Howard and Beach. And so it's North on Howard. You can find us on social media. It's Ricardo's Menswear. That's Ricardo's with 2 C's. And if you can't, just ask these guys. They know where I am. They know
We'll
how
put
to
all your
find
links
me.
in the description.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So,
All right.
so thank you for having me.
Thanks for
really
coming
did
on.
Thank you
enjoy
for coming
myself today. And I thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.